I understand when people are under job stress, it can be hard, but don't rush the process. Take the time and be patient, be strategic, because it's going to pay off. If you rush the process and you're just doing blanket applications, you're going to end up feeling very disappointed, unlikely to even get responses, which will just make you feel lower. Yep. So take the time, be strategic. And I guess the other thing is to do your research if you're going to invest in a career brand consultant or a resume writer. Yeah, there's a lot out there. Do your research and go with someone you feel comfortable with. Don't always prioritise. I know cost matters, but don't always prioritise that over quality as well.
Welcome to Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast, where we tackle all sorts of great topics in the areas of recruitment, job searching, mindset, technology, marketing, culture, and lots more. It's amazing what you'll pick up. Thanks for joining me. Welcome, everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. It's episode 63, Friday afternoon. I hope everybody's doing really well and looking forward to the weekend. I've got the sensational Jeanette Walton here with me. How are you, Jeanette?
I'm very well, thanks, Darren. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. We're going to hear about some great stuff today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm keen to spread the word about career branding.
Absolutely. Career branding. Is your career brand supporting
Yes.
your professional ambitions?
Exactly.
This is something
and
that
optimizing your ambitions.
Indeed. And this is something that is more and more important every single day, being that we're living and breathing online.
For sure.
I'll give everybody a little bit of an intro into who Jeanette is. So Jeanette has been consulting to a range of professionals and businesses to help them enhance their career branding for over 10 years now. A qualified writer and editor for over 20 years, Jeanette started focusing on career branding after realizing that she could help others achieve their professional ambitions. She's passionate about career branded content that energizes, attracts, informs, and influences. I love that. Very cool. Well, welcome, Jeanette. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I would love to hear more about your background story. How did you get into this lovely world of career branding?
So it has probably been a bit of an evolution for myself. So I first started out in office administration roles.
Yep.
And then as a mature age student, did some writing and editing, tertiary studies, where there was writing involved, obviously, but I moved into the editing for a while in the market research industry. So I got a bit of exposure to the importance of branding through that work. Right. And then decided to evolve again and move into writing. I was given this opportunity over 12 years ago to start producing career branded collateral, so resumes, LinkedIn profiles, etc. Nice. Seize the opportunity and have realised it's quite the niche for me. I have a real passion for helping others advance themselves professionally. Yeah, and I've been contracting to others and pushing my own business or working through my own business since then.
Nice. And what interests you particularly about this whole world? Why do you love it so much?
As I say, I do get a real buzz out of helping people reach their professional goals. So I guess I feel like I'm helping. I'm very community-minded. Like I do voluntary work on the side, for instance. Oh, great. So I get a real buzz out of it when I know that someone has achieved their career dreams, whether that's growing their customer base, moving into a more senior level role, complete career transition. I just really enjoy helping people. And I've found over the years I really enjoy the exposure to so many different professions and industries and getting to know. I've been told in my Clifton Strengths assessment that I'm a real researcher, and I do really enjoy researching and deep diving and better understanding professions and industries.
Nice. And you touched on a really interesting point, is that a lot of the time when people talk about career branding, a lot of the time people throw that under the banner of job seeking. It's really much more than that, because everybody in any stage of their career, whichever company, in whichever organization, whichever charity event, anything, can find value in branding themselves properly to their peers, colleagues, to the public, because it opens 100%. Up all sorts of opportunities. So it's not just for job seekers.
That's right. It's also for people trying to grow customer base or build networks.
Build trust, build credibility. It's everything.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us a bit more, if you could define a little bit for us, what exactly is career branding? Because a lot of people, it's a buzzword that a lot of people might not know.
Yeah, that's right. It's basically how you identify and convey your core professional offerings or strengths based on both your career history or your professional history and academic history, as well as your professional ambitions. So it's a way to immediately highlight to target audiences your specialisations in line with their needs or pain points. It's also used to establish a brand reputation. Really important these days to stand out in such a busy market.
Absolutely, indeed. And maybe give us a little bit of insight, if you can, on where do you see things have changed over the last few years? Like, where do you see that it's even more important and more pertinent than it was ever before?
Yeah, I guess whether we like it or not, we all have online presence, online profiles these days. And people are always going to seek you out online now. So whether that's, again, people looking for a job, a recruiter's going to check them out online as once they've received their application, whether that's a business trying to promote itself or customers are going to look them up online to find validation, whether that's testimonials and further detail on what they're offering.
Yep.
And it's also, I think the marketplace has just got so much more competitive. So I'll give you a statistic that I read recently that there are now over 250 applications for each vacancy on average. And something I'm regularly stressing to clients and contacts is that generally you have about 7 to 10 seconds to convince recruiters and other target audiences of your brand value.
That is so.
Okay, so it's really important to be clear, concise, and consistent in your career branding.
Yep.
And another factor, I guess, also is that really there's such an abundance of information overload these days.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to stand out, you've got to be really clear with your career branding.
Yeah, I love it. I think that you've raised a couple of really good points. First one, I think, is that just like anyone marketing anything, you have to look at the whole customer journey. And in this case, the customer could be a recruiter or it could be a job hiring manager.
Yep.
And you've got to make sure that from the first point of contact, i.e. your resume or the email that you send or the cover letter, to your LinkedIn profile, to possibly some supporting documentation, to how you show up, to everything that you do post that process until that job is secured and beyond, has to be consistent with your brand. It's very important for people to make sure that they don't just do something at one point and then it all drops off and it's incoherent with the rest.
That's right. Yes, there's a term called the 3 C's of branding, which applies to career branding as well as other types of branding. And that's being clear, consistent, and constant.
Yep.
So if you're not being clear, consistent, and constant across your different platforms or collateral, then you're going to confuse your target audiences, yeah? So they really need to believe in you through clarity, consistency, and constancy.
That's right. And another great point that I really love is that just like all of us, when we're looking through social media or looking at newsletters or emails or whatever, the attention span is minuscule.
Absolutely.
So the opportunity to grab someone's attention is very important and very small.
Yes.
And everybody's got to really think about how they are showing up for those first few seconds in whatever form they're showing up in, and make sure it tries to grab someone's attention. Think outside the box, maybe be a bit creative.
Yep, because I think it's also about being unique, how you would stand out from your competitors or your cohorts. Yeah, so something I really push when I work with clients is, for instance, the resume. We're doing a resume, the first page is just, it needs to be that immediate snapshot of their career history and their career offerings. So make it really quick and immediate to the recruiter.
Yep.
And it's the same with LinkedIn. You want any reader to immediately know from your headline and perhaps a part of your about summary, your main summary, what your career brand is.
Yep, so true. And I was even having a great conversation with a candidate on an interview yesterday, and they said, "Oh, where should I put the fact that I have security clearance?" I said, "Well, that's a real benefit to any employer, particularly if they're working with the government." I said, "Put that right at the top under the rest of your details, so they can see it straight away."
Absolutely. That first page or the top part of a LinkedIn profile is really realistically what most people are going to look at.
Yep.
And they may just move on, but if you've got some clear, engaging career branding, they're more likely to read on you.
100%. A lot of people might get caught up with how the resume flows or how it looks from the
design
point of view, but that doesn't matter. A lot of recruiters won't even get to the second page.
100%.
Make sure that whatever's on the first page, in particular the first half of the page, grabs them straight away. because
Yes.
that's the
And
most important part.
in terms of that consistency, people need to keep in mind that, for instance, if you're submitting a job application, well, that recruiter is going to go and look you up online,
Definitely.
on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
So that consistency and constancy is really important.
Yep.
It's all elements.
Very important. But let's dive in and get into the nuts and bolts of it all. If you were to give somebody some advice on how to begin their career branding process from any form of or any platform at all, how would you go about that? Give us some.
So I'd recommend that they first work out their optimal career branding. So in terms of their professional strengths,
Yep.
experiences, as well as ambitions. So for instance, if your primary objective is to grow your customer base based on your unique offering, or to step up to a senior leadership position based on your proven capabilities, it's really important to have clear, engaging career branding in that context. In my own consulting business, I've actually recently developed what I call the 7 core career branding elements.
Oh, great.
So these are the elements or foundations that help you to identify your core career brand that you can then use across collateral and promotions.
So there's like a process you go through before you even start creating that branding collateral.
Yes. So some of those elements, for instance, would include your standout skills and knowledge, your primary values and passions, your market understanding, including target audiences and their pain points, as well as your unique offerings.
Gotcha. And then in terms of the collateral itself, where do you suggest people go? They've got the resume, you've got your LinkedIn profile, you've got possibly video content if they're doing some kind of video summary of themselves, or even in the video interview possibly. How would you go about all that kind of stuff?
So really, obviously, it depends on your professional aspirations. So that firstly needs to be worked out. So what are your future plans? So, and then work out how it's best to engage with the relevant audiences based on those plans. So for instance, for many of us, LinkedIn is the most relevant platform in terms of promoting your professional wares to both attract and to network. And so a career brand selling a LinkedIn profile is going to be of value to you. Like other collateral that I offer, for instance, is a 1-page networking resume that you can use to reach out to agencies, recruiters, contractors. So a real snapshot you can hand over basically to show them immediately what you have on offer in case there's a contract or job opportunity. Other career branded collateral that could be beneficial includes a professional biography. So if you're someone who's regularly attending or presenting at conferences, or you're contributing to tenders, or you're someone who needs to be present on a website, and having that full professional biography that you can then grab bits out of to send through as appropriate is really relevant.
And you can use it as press releases and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
If you go on a podcast, people will say, send me your bio with a photo.
Exactly. And I should highlight, I just actually did a post recently about professional biographies because I think they're often neglected, and it's regularly said that they're an indicator that you take your brand seriously, having a biography. And they're different from a resume in that there's more creativity. So you can really tell that career story from a more creative perspective. Yep. And you don't have to have that standard career history, for instance. Yeah. Yep. So it's going to be a more enjoyable read.
Absolutely. Well, I want to go and dissect some collateral one by one with you, if that's cool.
Sure.
So let's take the resume to start with. If you were coaching some people out there that were job seekers and they really wanted to take their resume to the next level and make sure it sold them properly, what are a few tips that you can give them to make sure they've got their resume right?
Okay. So this is something so when I get leads, for instance, I offer to provide them even with just feedback on the resume. They don't have to come through me to get a new resume, but I like to help people. So I'll give them feedback. And some of the most common feedback would be, again, like I said earlier, making that first page really immediate, people, keeping in mind that you've got a short attention span with respect to recruiters and other audiences.
Maybe not too many paragraphs, more point form.
Yep. Concise, breaking it up with headings, bullet points.
Yep.
And also making it very achievement-based, because if you're just listing out responsibilities, well, that's just a given. In that job, most people do those responsibilities. It's the achievements that individualise you and help you to really stand out from others.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And a lot of the time when people ask me for feedback, their resume is good, but that's the one thing that they don't have, any achievements. And I say, put some achievements in there, particularly in your last couple of roles or most recent.
Yeah, it's going to come across a lot stronger to the recruiter what you can offer.
Yeah, because everybody is applying for a role. Everybody can do that role, but we want to know, what did you do in your last role and how did it benefit the organization? What actually happened?
So benefits, actually, you're touching on benefits. That's something I'm always asking when I work with clients.
Mhm.
What benefits did that achievement bring to the organisation or the customer?
Love it. So make your resume concise, make it easy to read, make it jump out at clear, not too many long-winded paragraphs. Keep it simple and keep all the good information at the top, because that's going to be more likely to be seen.
And another factor, which you probably know being in recruiting, is the general rule is to go back about 10 years in detail in a resume. So I often will include a career summary on the first page where it'll go back longer than 10 years, but really only drill down into the most recent 10 years with respect to providing achievements, etc.
Exactly. Like I think in America and the UK, possibly resumes are a page, but in Australia, we still
1 to 2, yep.
We still 2 or 3, but over 4, it's starting to see not too much.
So for me, my rule is, which I think is the Australian standards, is up to 4 at the most. And that's really, you need to be someone who's got a lot of experience, or you're an executive level to justify 4 pages. But yeah, if we're looking at producing a resume for the American market or the European market, even the Asian market, I will keep it to 2 pages.
Love it. Awesome. And then what about LinkedIn? Let's go to LinkedIn. A lot of people would be using LinkedIn, and first of all, it might not mirror their resume at all. So I don't know what your thoughts are on if it should mirror the resume or not, but there's so much in LinkedIn that can be used to further convey your brand and what you do and your value, and people don't use it. So I'd love to get your opinion on what they should do from LinkedIn's point of view.
Yes, I've been going on a bit of a journey myself with LinkedIn, with ramping up my own business in terms of starting up a newsletter, for instance, using the featured section. Yeah, there's so many different elements on LinkedIn. But look, first and foremost, something like that again, I mentioned earlier that's really important is that headline. So when people do searches on LinkedIn, the headline is the first thing they're going to see. So you need to ensure that headline immediately tells people your career brand offering based on your ambitions or aspirations.
Yep.
And I agree that the resume and LinkedIn profile should be aligned, but not exactly the same. Use the LinkedIn profile to show more of your personality, for instance, like I'll show more of their personality, and treat it like an enhancer of the resume, because the resume needs to be kept quite clinical, whereas you've got more liberty on LinkedIn.
You can make it a bit more rich and full and inclusive than just a bland standard resume setup.
Absolutely. And I will try and use as many LinkedIn sections as I can for each client, because as I say to the clients, the more you use LinkedIn, the better LinkedIn likes you in terms of search rank.
Yeah, that's true. And even, what do you call that little section with all the different articles?
Yep. So the featured section. Yep.
Featured section. I think that's a great section for people to put some information, put an article about something you're passionate about, something you might have done, a video, or maybe a video testimonial, anything. There's so much.
Absolutely. It's a very visual platform. I don't think people appreciate that it's also, in addition to being professional, it's a very visual platform. So people want to see images, reels, articles, case studies, evidence.
Exactly. Evidence is a great word.
Yep.
Help us substantiate what you say you can do and what you've achieved in your resume, but give us more information to substantiate it and give us evidence of that in your LinkedIn profile.
For sure.
All the different forms that are available to you. Written, audio, video, graphic, whatever.
Yep. And I also encourage my clients who I produce LinkedIn profiles or company pages for, like I send them a heap of tips and guidelines, and I really encourage them to engage a lot more on LinkedIn. Yeah. So it's really important to keep building networks, showing your expertise through posts, etc.
What are your thoughts on, I see this quite a bit lately as well, people putting up a summary of themselves or resume in a way and saying, look, I'm looking for work. This is what I do, in a post on LinkedIn. What are your views on that?
I think in the Australian market in particular, we're not really big fans of cold calling as such. I think it's probably better to be a bit more strategic, and maybe a bit more strategic and less in your face.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think by instead building your networks, ensuring you've got adequate branding on your LinkedIn profile, and that includes keyword optimization, even like sending messages. You could send private messages to recruiters. Definitely. But I think you've got to be careful not to be too in the face of people, because it does deter people, in Australia in particular.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's a really good point that you brought up, is that a lot of people think of LinkedIn as just another place to reply to an ad or
Yes.
in a very superficial way. But if you
Yes.
can do your research and treat LinkedIn like a database of information, you can
Absolutely.
start to map out your whole industry and work out
Absolutely.
who are the clients, who are the companies, who are the recruiters, who are the employers that you might want to connect with, and then start
Sure.
being more strategic in how you direct message them or target them in some other way,
Yes.
rather than just use it as a very bland job board.
Absolutely. And I think when you start using LinkedIn the right way, I think quite often unexpected or really pleasant opportunities arise. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an incredibly powerful platform, if
Yes.
not the most powerful platform right now in
For
certain
sure.
areas. And
It's
people should really dive in and start to utilize the power hidden behind the obvious in LinkedIn.
I think I don't know if it's quite up to it, but it's close to 1 billion members. So
It's
yeah.
incredible. It's up
Yeah.
there.
It's massive.
And just thinking out loud, I mean, these days there's so much great technology now. I even use it myself for some other things I do. You can use AI to create one-page websites and all this kind of fun stuff. So you can easily put a one-page together on yourself.
Yes.
And maybe you might have some more testimonials or some videos or some walkthrough content of you explaining something to, again, give people more information and more evidence on what you can do.
And I think something that's regularly said about LinkedIn that is very true is, and it's probably said a lot about business marketing, is that people want to think you're helping them or giving them something. Yeah. So it's not just you taking, it's about giving as well. So whether that's sharing your expertise, for instance.
Love it.
Yeah.
Any other collateral that you would highlight in that journey?
So that, look, resume, a contentious one. I don't know how you feel about this being in recruitment. Is I just had a client yesterday that had to explain the benefits of a cover letter.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of people disregard the cover letter.
Yes,
Yeah.
good old cover letter.
Yeah. But I still see in a lot of job applications or how to apply instructions for jobs that they still want a cover letter.
Yep.
So whether people like it or not, cover letters are still really relevant. And they're, again, another opportunity to enhance your resume, that more clinical resume, by showing more of your personality, perhaps your cultural fit, and keep it to that one-page snapshot. And that could be a really nice lead into your resume for the recruiter or other audiences.
Definitely. And again, don't put 20 different paragraphs. Keep it nice and easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
We want to be able to read it and skim through it really quickly. If we spend 10 minutes looking at your cover letter, we won't even get to your resume.
Exactly. So my rule of thumb when I'm writing a cover letter is 2 paragraphs, a bulleted list, and a bit of a summary at the end, which is often about their academic qualifications.
I like that. Nice and easy in the eyes.
Yeah.
And my general philosophy is, I know that a lot of the time when you have particular search criteria for government jobs, or
Yes.
you might have an ATS or some kind of website that forces you to submit your resume in a certain way, and you have to have a separate attachment for your resume, a separate attachment for your cover letter.
Yes.
Totally understand. You've just got to comply and do whatever you got to do. But
That's
if you're
right.
targeting people outside of that, my view is to paste the cover letter content in the email so they don't have to actually open up another attachment.
Yep. So I do actually offer an e-note in place of a cover letter for that purpose.
Yeah, I love that.
So a couple of quick paragraphs, again, with a bullet list, bang, encourage the reader to open up the resume.
Yep. So you've got your e-note or your little content in your email, and then one attachment, which is your resume. And that's
totally
it.
Agree.
We don't want another like, it's hard enough to open up one attachment. Now you want to make us open up 2.
I think people need to always think like a recruiter. I just said that in another post recently. You really need to think like a recruiter, and recruiters are often time poor. They're just inundated with applications.
Absolutely. We've got communication coming at us from all angles.
Yes.
SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Email, telephones. It's unbelievable.
So make it as easy as possible for the recruiter.
Yep. Indeed. Absolutely. All right. Fantastic. Some really good advice there.
Can I actually, before we move on, I'll just touch on the selection criteria. I just had a client reach out the other day, and I find this is a regular one too. A bit of advice with respect to addressing key selection criteria for public sector roles. Quite often, not quite often, but sometimes it's not clear how to address that key selection criteria. So I always ask the client or prospective client to reach out to the recruiter to confirm how it's to be addressed, because if you don't address it the way they want you to, they're going to disregard you before even looking at your application.
That's right. And you can spend all that energy and time and then it doesn't even conform with the structure or the style that they're looking for. So
That's
absolutely,
right.
ask first.
Yeah. And, it's a great opportunity to reach out to the recruiter, introduce yourself, potentially find out a bit more about the role, to give me some insights, perhaps, if I'm writing the career branded
Yep.
collateral
I
for
think
you.
you've just touched on a golden strategy.
Yes.
A lot of people are scared, and I can understand why, to go outside that process of, all right, let me submit my resume and then I'll follow up, or they'll follow up with me. But if you can
Yes.
somehow go around that process and start to build a relationship with the hiring manager or the gatekeeper
Yes.
and start to build a bit of value, you can start to bypass everybody else in the queue.
That's right. Because it also reflects that you're proactive. Yeah.
Yep.
And people like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the advice I give to people. When I say, if people come to me and say, what am I going to do? How do I find my first job in the industry? Or I'm transitioning from one function to another. I say,
Yep.
map out the market, map out the people that can say yes to you, and
Yes.
approach them first,
Yes.
either on the phone or if not in an email, before you send in your resume, and then
Yes.
build a relationship that causes some intrigue and ask them to, and they'll ask you, can you send in your resume? Here's my private email address.
And that's where LinkedIn also comes in handy.
Definitely.
So, it's really pushed that you keep LinkedIn future focused for that reason. There's no point having your LinkedIn profile branded for your past career. If you want to, for instance, change your career, well, brand your LinkedIn profile to exemplify that, because you're wanting to bring in those new relevant connections and networks.
Absolutely. I like that word, future focused. That's
Yeah.
right. Keep your LinkedIn future focused. It's more about how your brand is showing up for future opportunities, not about what have you done in the past. Who cares what you've done in the past?
Exactly.
What am I going to do with it now?
Yes. And what you talked about earlier, you're cultivating an interest. If you brand yourself based on your future plans, keeping in mind that LinkedIn is a marketing tool, yeah?
That's right, absolutely.
So if you brand yourself based on your future plans on LinkedIn, and then you start networking, sharing it in insights, etc., well, people are going to start noticing you and recognizing you as that future focused brand.
Yep, love that. Very cool. Lots of great insights there for everybody. So please take note of those.
Yep.
But I'd love you to tell us a little story or give us an example or a couple of examples maybe of how you've helped some people maybe go through the process with us, confidentially, of course, and let us know a bit about what happened and how they achieved what they wanted to achieve.
Sure. So I can give you one or two examples. And look, I use these clients for regular testimonial examples, so I know they'd be okay with me using their first names. So a key example is my repeat client, Cassandra, who's now actually in senior, if not executive leadership roles in the public sector. So she first came to me 4 or 5 years ago, and she'd been working in hospitality for quite some time, up to 10 years. And in leadership roles, but she really wanted to move into the public sector. Wasn't sure how to make that transition, how to showcase that she could make that transition. So we really worked together to produce that career branded collateral, including a resume and cover letter that highlighted her transferability. And that was based on core requirements or industry expectations. So for instance, if you're going into the public sector, it's a highly regulated industry. So governance is going to be really important to highlight that you have that capability in governance, and also stakeholder management, customer centricity. So we worked together to highlight how she could easily transition into the public sector from hospitality industry. And that included also reducing the hospitality speak as such, That's a really important one too. I think people forget they use acronyms or industry-specific terminology, but if you're moving out of that industry, get rid of that, because the people you're targeting aren't going to know what you're talking about.
That's right.
So you've got to keep it more generic, highlight your transferability. So as a result of us working together on that career documentation, she obtained the first job she went for in the public sector.
Oh.
Yeah. And we've since worked together a couple of times. She just keeps advancing her career in the same government agency. So she's a very happy client.
And how long did that process take?
To produce the career branded collateral. So probably, I usually say 1 to 2 weeks, so probably a couple of weeks. I think she had a specific role that she wanted to apply for, so she got her application in on time and she got the job.
Amazing. Did you do any coaching or feedback sessions with her along the way of the process, or she was pretty good at it?
So my process involves a consultation. So we do a phone-based consultation where we really thrash out the career history and the career ambitions together to work out what we can highlight. And once I send through the documentation, they're always entitled to 2 rounds of revisions because I think it's a really collaborative process and I want them to feel comfortable with how they're being represented in the new career documentation. And look, sometimes some of them come back and they might ask me, why have you said this, da-da-da. So I make sure that they understand everything I've written. In terms of that transferability, it can sometimes be a bit confusing. So I'll make sure they feel clear and about what I've written before they use it.
Yeah, perfect. Because they have to also be the people that are articulating that story. So they have to use the same language. They have to feel comfortable with that story, but not story in inverted commas because it's true. It's not false.
Yes.
But it's got to be
being a bit more creative than they're potentially used to. And I will always make changes. Look, if they're really not comfortable with something, I will change it. So that's what that revision process is.
Great. So that's one happy customer. Any other stories for us?
Yeah. So another one is AOMA. So I have an editing background as well, which I think is quite complementary because I'm good at keeping things really concise. And I had already worked with her when she was a PhD client in Australia. I edited her thesis. She then went back to Sri Lanka. She works in the higher education sector and she was quite senior in Sri Lanka. So she reached out to me to ask if I could help her to produce career documentation that would enable her to return permanently to Australia. So we worked together to ensure that in her resume and her LinkedIn profile that we demonstrated that she had that market understanding of Australia and that she'd continued to have that market understanding of Australia, including through some casual work she was still doing and through connections, but also highlighted the benefits of what she'd been doing in Sri Lanka and how that was transferable to Australia, based on her leadership capabilities in particular and through a global mindset, so global standards that she'd adhered to in Sri Lanka that would be beneficial to Australia. So based on what we did, she started applying for roles before she got here and she ended up getting at least 3 or 4 offers for casual senior lecturing work as soon as she got here through different universities.
Wow, that's impressive.
And we actually spoke not long ago and she said to me she's actually probably had too many offers. She's actually been a bit overwhelmed. But one of those offers that she's taken up was to join a teaching panel at a university, picked up on the fact that she had these leadership capabilities that she'd shown in Sri Lanka that would be beneficial here.
Amazing. So it just goes to show you, even if you're coming to Australia for the first time, if you get this stuff right, it can help your percentages and your probability of securing a role quicker than if you didn't.
Absolutely. So it's about highlighting your relevance and your transferability.
Yeah, transferability, big one. Love it. Well, Jeanette, that's been amazing. You've given us some great insights and great tips here. I'd love to give you the opportunity to let us know a bit more about how you work and your process so people might want to reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just start by saying I'm well regarded for being very thorough and very probing. Like I'll often have clients, and this is clients through businesses I subcontract to as well as through my own business. I'll often have clients say that they feel like this is preparing them for an interview because I'll really dissect what they've got in their existing resume. And to the point where sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not actually quite sure what that meant. And so we'll change things. But so they really appreciate that when they're open to it, and most are, that it prepares them for that job, the next stage of the job interview stage. And as I mentioned earlier, I really prioritise those strong collaborative connections with my clients. I like to keep it respectful, personal. So it's a really tailored approach for each client based on their needs. And I understand that some clients are in job-seeking stress, for instance. So I'll try and accommodate that by perhaps meeting some more urgent deadlines. So I really want to work with them to optimize their career branding. So my process involves, firstly, sometimes I'll have what I call a discovery call. So through my LinkedIn profile, they can book an appointment and we'll have a chat. I just had a potential client yesterday where I did this, and we'll have a chat about their situation, whether that's they've been applying for jobs with no success or future career plans that are different from what they've been doing. So we'll sit and talk about how we could potentially work together, come up with a strategy. If they say yes to what I'm offering, we then have a longer phone consultation, which can go up to an hour, where we really drill down, as I say, into their career history. So I really want to understand it because the better I understand them and their career history, the better I can write about it. And I really focus on trying to bring out achievements. And in those achievements, the how and the why and the benefits. So to make them really stand out. I then produce the career documentation for them, and I usually say within 3 to 5 days of us having the consultation. Once I send that through to them, I'll send some tips along the way about my business and about job searching, job interviews, LinkedIn profile optimization. And then, as I've mentioned earlier, they're entitled to those 2 rounds of revisions. So we then work together to make sure they're really comfortable with what we've produced before they start using it.
Wow. Okay. So it's basically an initial quick consultation, then a longer telephone-based consultation, then you produce the documents, and then you have regular follow-ups and revisions.
Yes. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm just in the process of finalising this business model I've created, so the 7 core career branding elements. So I am looking at in the future of having like potentially a consulting session where we really drill down into understanding their core career brand elements before we work together on their collateral.
Yeah, that'd be great. And do you do any of this on Zoom if they want to, or either way?
So I usually do the first consultation on Zoom.
Okay.
So we can meet each other face to face. I do generally encourage the long consultation to be done via phone, mostly because I'm typing like crazy while we talk. Look, if someone really wanted to do it face to face, I could do it, but I always forewarn them that I'll be like, I do make a lot of notes while we're talking. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Very good.
I should highlight this. I do then encourage like the revision stage and that to be done via email, just because I find it more productive. I have time to go away and think about necessary changes or feedback, etc.
Perfect. And then you do the same with a LinkedIn profile if they need to?
Yes, same process for all the different career branded collateral.
Right. Okay. Awesome. And do you do any other work when it comes to interview preparation or anything of that nature?
No, I am thinking about delving into those areas. Yes. As I say, I'm thinking about this, doing the career brand deep dive consultation, which I watch this space. But yes, I have thought about doing some interview training. But I guess some of them are telling me I'm preparing them anyway. But yes, maybe in the future.
Do you generally find yourself working with a certain type of niche, or is it very broad?
Because I've been doing this for over 12 years and worked across various business, like subcontracted to various businesses as well as working through my own, I really worked across a wide range of industries and professions, yeah. No, I wouldn't say I have a niche because of that. So, for instance, recently I've done a couple of executive, higher education. I'm about to do someone transitioning from higher education into executive roles. So I do a range of industries.
Fantastic. It's very rewarding and lots of fun.
Yes, it is. I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it can get busy, I'm sure, as well.
Yes.
Lots of deadlines.
Yes. I actually, so last year through one of the businesses I was subcontracting to, I actually did a lot of work with people wanting to come out of the police force. So helping them to transition out of the police force into a range of different job types. I really enjoyed that. I think that helping people transition is a real passion of mine, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're talking about job placement services here. This is another term they use in the industry when companies might do a large redundancy. They'll contract out to a company that does exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Well, Jeanette, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation. You've given us some great advice, some great tips. If anybody wants to reach out to Jeanette and have a chat with her, a free consultation about how you can get some more benefit out of your collateral and find your dream job faster, please reach out to her.
Yes.
Tell everybody your website and how they can find you.
Okay. So look, I'm probably most active on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, Jeanette Walton, I also have a company page, Walton's Words. So I'm regularly posting on both. But on my personal LinkedIn profile, you can book an appointment. That's where you can subscribe to my newsletter. So I do that every fortnight. That's regular career branding tips and advice. And I do daily posts through both. Yep, they can look at my website, waltonswords.com.au, and that gives you a guide on prices, etc. I also have a Google business profile where there's multiple reviews if they wanted to check out validate me. Oh. And I'm loosely using Facebook and Instagram, so getting there with those two.
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn would probably be your platform of choice.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
It's such a powerful platform for
absolutely.
Industry. Yep.
Yes.
I find the same. Well, awesome, Jeanette. Really, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I hope everybody's enjoyed that as much as I have. I always like to give my guests the last word. So what would you like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, maybe just a couple of quick takeaways or tips. So firstly, I just want to stress, and I understand when people are under job stress, it can be hard, but don't rush the process. Take the time and be patient, be strategic, because it's going to pay off. If you rush the process and you're just doing blanket applications, you're going to end up feeling very disappointed.
Very
nice. Unlikely to even get responses, which will just make you feel lower. Yep. So take the time, be strategic. And I guess the other thing is to do your research if you're going to invest in a career brand consultant or a resume writer. There's a lot out there. Do your research and go with someone you feel comfortable with. Don't always prioritise. I know cost matters, but don't always prioritise that over quality as well.
Definitely. This is your career and your livelihood we're talking about.
Exactly.
Saving a few bucks or spending a few extra dollars up front could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars later on. So it's crazy to think about it from that point of view.
Exactly. And the last point I'll make is to be prepared to, if you're working with a professional career brand consultant or resume writer, be prepared to work in a partnership. So you put it in as well.
I might add one thing to that. Come with an open mind.
Absolutely.
Because if you come
prepare to be challenged.
If you come and say, oh, this is what I want, you might come and say, no, that's all very well, but that's not going to work. And if people are stubborn, nobody's going to win. So come with an open mind and be prepared to maybe learn or find a few holes in your own practices.
Absolutely.
Or your own strategy.
To be challenged and to be wowed is what I would hope deliver to my clients.
Yep. We all get into a rut and we all do things our way and we do things the way they've always been done.
Absolutely.
But we forget that times change and there's new ways to do things and new applications to work with and who knows, new systems and who knows. So you've got to keep an open mind.
And as we touched on earlier, it's just, I don't think people always appreciate how competitive it is out there.
I can definitely.
How intense it is.
I would agree. I get hundreds of resumes for every application or every open.
Exactly. Absolutely. So to take that time to stand out.
Love it. Great advice. Well, Jeanette, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone
out there. Pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us or coming. Everyone out there, enjoy the weekend and we'll see you next week for another great episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. If you'd like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@saulrecruitment.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. But for now, though, have a fantastic day and I'll see you next time.